We have the audience in Leeds. They've just watched your masterpiece, Tusk. Would you guys like to vocally say what you thought of the film?
Wait, before that happens, I'd like to throw out a disclaimer. I'm just sorry about the whole movie. I know it's a lot to process. Some people are like, what happened? What happened to the Clerks guy? And why this walrus? But yeah, man, I was feeling really artsy, and this is what came out of it.
So we're going to start. As I said, the guys have just watched the film.
I'm sorry. I'm in Florida at my mom's house, and my mom literally just brought me iced tea. How sweet is that? And she was like, She's like, are you still talking about that walrus movie, Tiger? I said, yes, Mom, to England.
Is she proud of the walrus movie?
She cried. First time I showed it to her, man. And I walked in at the end during the credits, and she was crying. And I was like, did I move her? Or is she like, my son just destroyed his career? But her first reaction when I asked her, I said, Mom, what are you crying for? This is a dopey movie, Mom. This is Justin Long. Why are you crying? She goes, that poor animal. I love that. That made me feel happy. And I still wasn't sure whether she was talking about Justin Long or her son.
Is she there?
My mom's here. She liked that joke. She just laughed. I just said, oh, Tiger.
Cool.
This is exciting, man. It's so weird to be in this part of the world and still talking to you guys. I desperately wanted to be there tonight for this because the origins of Tusk lie over in the UK anyway. But unfortunately, I was already booked to come out here to see my mom, and we have some shows this weekend. So, but thanks to the magic of technology, here we are, and I'm ready to answer your questions about why the fuck did you do this or whatever.
Well, let me start off. We've had many other types of films from you. We've had comedies, we've had kind of action, drama. Why at this point make a kind of a body horror?
I don't know. See, I guess that's definitely how one would classify the movie. I never thought of it as a body horror movie. I think of it as a podcast movie because the whole thing was born from a podcast. The idea of me and Scott Mosier, the guys that you heard at the end of the movie, that's me and my friend Scott Mosier. And we did this episode of podcast where we talked about the story came out of Brighton, a guy offering up room for rent in his amazing house, but you had to dress like a walrus for like 2 hours a day. And that captured our imagination. And so in the podcast, as you heard, you get to a certain point where I'm like, look, I want to make this real. If you want to see it, hashtag walrus yes or walrus no. There was a lot of walrus yes the next day. If you look now, there's a lot of walrus no after the fact. A lot of backseat driver. But in any event, it was kind of like that's where it was born from. So for me, it was always a podcast movie. I mean, again, technically, yeah, absolutely, it would be body horror or whatever. But that's coming from a dude who lives every day of his life in a body horror movie. Like when you're a fat dude, you're constantly in a state of body horror anyway. But this to me was more about push and whimsy. The whole thing was like very film school-y. I didn't spend much time in film school. Like I went to film school for about 4 months, dropped out, and then Clerks happened quickly thereafter. And then after Clerks, people expected fucking results, which was always the worst part of my career. So suddenly I was like late in my career, I said, let me do the film school shit, the shit that I would have done back in the day. Because as much as I love comedy and whatnot, those were not the first movies I wanted to make. The Clerks was the movie I could make. The movie I wanted to make was like Blue Velvet or From Beyond or Reanimator or anything from David Cronenberg. Like those were the movies I love, rubber movies with like effects and stuff. But it took me about 20 years to figure out filmmaking. I could have gone to film school and did it in 4, but I'm from New Jersey. It takes us a long time to learn things. So 20 years in, where I found myself devoid of anything personal to say. Like in the early movies I made, people like those so much, they're enjoyable to a certain amount of people, not everybody, because they are so damn personal. That's just not cinema as much as things and feelings and thoughts that were like ripped from my heart and soul at the time and projected, and I'm like, what do you think? Do you identify? Very much like a cinematic blog, but that was before we had the internet and stuff. So then years later, man, like I get better at my craft with just years of experience, actual filmmaking, but I run out of personal stuff to say because I stopped living a personal life when Clerks got picked up. Like suddenly, you see in my career at one point, I stopped making movies about things that interest me, and I start making movies about making movies. And that happens because I pulled from the personal life, and without much of a personal life that was much interesting, or I didn't live a real life anymore. I was in fantasy land making movies and stuff, hanging out with like Ben Affleck and whatnot. So here I am, like at a point in my life where I didn't have any personal experience to draw from in the same way that I used to when I was a kid, and that's the only filmmaking I knew. So I kind of like walked away from it for a while after Red State, because I was like, I really don't have anything to say. If I'm going to make a movie right now about some personal struggle or something going on in my life, it's going to be about a dude who's married and happy, and he's got a kid, and the kid's doing well, and like things worked out for him, and shockingly he still gets fucking laid and stuff like that. And nobody wants to see that movie. So I can put that on a podcast. That's where I started putting all that stuff, the best stuff, most of the personal stuff I started doing on the podcast. So without anything personal to talk about, I was like, I guess I'll just walk away from filmmaking. So with this thing, with Tusk, suddenly we're having this conversation, and I have this moment harkens right back to the beginning of my career. Like back when I made Clerks, man, the reason Clerks exists, because I used to love movies, used to love comedies, but I never saw me and my friends represented on the big screen in any of these comedies, not us specifically. There weren't movies about dudes talking about pussy and Star Wars and comic books. Not yet. Now throw a rock and you'll hit them, but this is at a time where there wasn't that. And I'd always sit there and go like, why won't they make movies about people like me and my friends, talk about the stuff me and my friends talk about? And then one day I woke up and realized, like, Kevin, nobody is ever going to make a movie about you and your fucking friends. Nobody even knows who your fucking friends are or you. And if you want to see a movie that's similar to the sensibility of you and your friends, then go fucking make it. Like, that's the only way it's going to exist. And that I did, and that was Clerks. And it, like, changed my life. So years later, I'm on this podcast talking about Tusk, and I get obsessed with the idea of this movie, wanting to see this movie like it didn't exist. And I get sad because nobody's ever going to make the Walrus movie. And I'm like, where are all the brave filmmakers? And I forget that I used to be one. And so at that point, it was kind of like, all right, old man, throw down the gauntlet for yourself and let's see if you can make something of this. And so I didn't make it a Chautauqua. It wasn't some sort of like quest where I was like, this will happen by hook or by crook. I just pushed whimsy, man. Every day I was like, well, let me see if anyone wants me to write this. And then the Twitter thing of Walrus, yes, boom, suddenly I had people wanting me to write, going, yeah, fucking do it. And I understand the internet saying, do it. It's like your friend when you're drunk at a party and you're like, I'm going to take my fucking dick out. And your friend's like, do it. And he's trying to take a picture. So having the support from the internet isn't necessarily like a big gold star, but it was enough for me, man. That's all you got to do. Sometimes pat an artist on the back, say, go make your fucking Walrus movie, fatty, and watch, what happens, man. Because either way, it's going to work out for the audience. Either you're going to get a real weird, fucked up Walrus movie, or you're going to watch a dude crash and burn try to make a weird, fucked up Walrus movie. So once I had that support, suddenly I was like, all right, well, let me see if it comes easily as I sit down to write. And I was at this place where I was waiting for money for Clerks 3. I was waiting for permission from somebody to tell me I could make that movie. Give me money, make the flick. And suddenly I was like, oh man, I'm at this weird place in my career again where I'm waiting for somebody to tell me I can make my art. In the world of podcasting, if I want to make art, I sit down, I start going. I sit down with a friend. I sit down with my mother. I start telling stories, man. I don't have to wait for somebody. I don't have to be like, I need to express myself. Give me $20 million and Ben Affleck. I could sit down and just do a podcast and stuff. So suddenly, Clerks 3 was becoming like, oh, now I have to wait to express myself before I get permission. And believe me, I understand. We're talking about millions of dollars. But instead of sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, I said, maybe I'll just try writing a fucking Walrus movie, because why not? I'm baked anyway. What could go wrong? And so I sat down and just started pushing whimsy every day. If I can write a little bit, push it a little further, show it to my wife. If she'd crapped on it and said, this is fucking dumb, I'd have been like, yeah, but it's funny, and put it away or something. So instead, my wife liked it. She's like, where's this going? I said, I don't know, man. I'm just fucking making it up as I go along, man. We have a loose structure from the podcast, but now I'm just grabbing shit from my world. Like, I didn't put it it wasn't set in Brighton in England. I put it in Canada because I've been working on this Hit Somebody miniseries. So I knew a lot about Canada. Some shit I couldn't fit into the miniseries. So I said, all right, I'll use it in Tusk. And then, you know, I just poured in shit I loved. Like, here's some Canada references, and here's like an old man doing a ridiculously long monologue, that just storytelling. Like, I'm not a talented filmmaker, but this is what I love about film. I'm not the guy that moves the camera. That's for other better filmmakers. I love acting. So I love the idea of hanging a camera right on an actor and letting them fucking talk for 4 minutes, man. And if they don't break, I'm like, look at that shit. That's magic. That motherfucker made you think they were just saying that off the top of their head. Oh, that's cinema to me. A lot of other filmmakers would be like, don't listen to him. He made Cop Out. And they might be right. But that to me is the joy of cinema. I love to hang a camera on an actor and let him fucking perform. So the idea of including long monologues where people could just sit there and act and act and act, that appealed to me. I put that into the script. And so bit by bit, I just pushed it along. At one point, my wife was like, look, you want to do this? I said, I'm thinking about it. I said, the script's kind of cool. I got enough interest from people who want to act in it. And she said, look, if you can't find financing, we can put up the house. And so I was like, fucking A, man. I was ready to bet my house on fucking Tusk. And not that I was like, it's going to be a windfall. But I just had to see this movie, man. I had that same moment back on Clerks, man, where I'm sitting on the podcast going like, why won't someone make this movie? I want to see the Walrus movie. And my mind had the snap where I was like, dude, nobody is ever going to make your stupid fucking Walrus movie, man. You just laid out a blueprint for everybody, but people will be like, haha, and let the podcast die. If you want to see the Walrus movie, you actually got to do it yourself. And so I sat there and said, all right, man, once before this happened to me, and it gave me my whole career. Let me listen to the Muse again and follow the Walrus thing. And so I kind of dove in. And luckily, I didn't have to put up the house. There were these guys called the Demarest, Sam Engelbart and David Greathouse. They'd heard that like I was making this movie. They'd somehow gotten a copy of the script. Shannon McIntosh, one of our producers, gave it out, and those cats read it. And they came over to my house, and they sat down upstairs with me, and they tapped the script, and they were like, "Are you fucking serious?" And I was like, yeah, man, I'm about to finance it myself. And they were like, this seems like a stoner movie. And I was like, it is. It was born in a blaze. I was like, this is a crazy movie, man. So I can't understand what you guys are doing here. And they were like, how much is it? And I was like, it's going to be under $3 million. I think it's about 2.5 or something, wound up being 2.7. And so they said, we have that at our end of the year fund. This was in like September, October. So they were like, I just went, and Sam Engelbart, man, I'll forever love him because he said the thing that made me want to make Tusk. He was just like, I just want to see it. He's like, I don't care if it works or not. I just got to see if this works. The script is weird, man. And so suddenly I had a backer. So every day I pushed a little bit of whimsy until 6 months from the day that I put the podcast up and people started listening to it. 6 months from the day, fastest I'd ever put a movie into production. I was sitting on a set looking at Justin Long going action, and he was dressed like a walrus going, ugh, and wondering what the fuck he did with his career. So it's all about, you know, the pushing of the whimsy, man. Like, and the movie came out in the States. It did not light the box office on fire and stuff, but it was such a cheap movie. Everyone was covered in advance and whatnot. But it relaunched me in a big bad way, man. Suddenly, from this movie, I was like, I want to make 2 more Canadian horror movies, man, because I love working with the rubber. Like seeing Justin in the rubber was just fantastic. I felt like I was making Planet of the Apes, the old one, not the really good technical one, but the old one with the rubber masks. I was like, oh shit, this is what I loved as a child, man. So this is awesome. So I wanted to do 2 more of what we're calling the True North trilogy. That's what they call Canada, the True North. So it starts with Tusk. The second one is called Yoga Hosers, which we're still in the process of shooting. We've shot 2/3 of it, and we have 1/3 left to shoot once Mr. Depp, who's in that movie, playing Guy Lapointe. Guy Lapointe returns in that movie Yoga Hosers. I could talk to you about it because you just saw the picture. Guy Lapointe returns in Yoga Hosers, and Yoga Hosers is about those 2 girls who stand behind the register and had blank faces, man. Wrote the whole movie about them, and I play the rubber monster in that movie. It was supposed to be Jason Mewes, but he freaked out. They put the makeup, his big headpiece, and they put his rubber. It's like sticking your... Do you know what a fleshlight is over there? Yeah, it was like being inside a human fleshlight, and he's got real claustrophobia issues. When he was a kid, his mom was like a real bad heroin addict. She'd take him to junkies' houses. He'd get locked in closets like for 8 hours at a clip. So once he put the headpiece on, it covered him up. He freaked and ripped it off. So he couldn't do the part. He was supposed to play the bad guys in the movie. So instead, we shot it like a week and a half ago or whatever. That was why I shaved my beard off, because they had to put rubber all over my face and whatnot. And it did. It felt exactly like I was encased in a fleshlight the whole time. It felt like I was head fucking a fleshlight. But so that's the second movie. It's called Yoga Hosers. And then the third movie is called Moose Jaws, which is just very simply Jaws with a moose. Now that was all great, and boy, that was like enough for me. It also led to this pathway where we're in serious discussions now to shoot that hockey miniseries, Hit Somebody, that I've been talking about for so many years, starting in the fall. Once again, all from Tusk. Just because a bunch of people were like, "Are you fucking kidding with this movie?" It captured their imagination, and so. The big one, though, the one that was like, oh my God, I never could have foresaw this, was Clerks 3, man. This movie paved the way and paid for Clerks 3. The same people who are making Yoga Hosers are like Kim Ledford, who's my friend over at Starstream, my producer. We were talking about something and Clerks 3 popped up. She's like, oh, whatever happened to that? So I put it to the side because I was making Tusk and started getting into the Canadian rubber movies, which sounds way sexier than I mean it. And she was like, can I read it? And I gave it to her, and she's like, we must make this now. So all of a sudden, boom, I had financing for Clerks 3. And so Tusk was this weird gift that keeps on giving, at least to me, not to the audience. It gives like the audience like a venereal disease. You'll carry this shit like herpes for the rest of your life, man. It just will weigh on you like, holy shit, I saw the fucking dude as a walrus. But it also, like, what I loved about the whole process is, when I first put up that podcast, there was a few people on Twitter and on Facebook who had this reaction. They had listened to me and Scott, just like you guys did at the end of the movie, talking, and that's how the movie was built. The bones of the movie are in that podcast. So they heard that conversation, and they heard me go, like, I'm going to turn this into a movie, and because this is enough. And which, some people will argue till the end of time, nobody, it was not enough. But that's art, man. I'm not this guy where I'm like, I like when people don't like me. I hate that. I wish everybody liked me. But when it comes to art, man, it's just like, I knew some people would hate this movie because like, what the fuck is your problem? And I was like, I don't know. It seemed like a good idea. I ran out of personal things to say, man. And here's the sad thing. Happy people don't make great art. Great art comes from pain, and I'm happy, man. Everything worked out for me. But, happy people can make weird or bad art, and so I'm still in the game. So at the end of the day, man, it was these few reactions on Twitter and Facebook that really drove it home for me and made me want to do this in a big, bad way. This is what the tenor of the posts were. Is that all it takes? Is it that simple to write a script? Is that allowed? There were people who just like don't know how to get started. Like they would want to do something like this and probably do something better, or whether it's in film or just starting something even more noble. Like some people just don't know how to take that first step. They're not self-starters. And I've been a self-starter since, I fucking found out my dick worked and shit. So I know how to self-start. So for me, I was like, I always take that part of the process for granted, man. For me, if I have a dopey idea, I'm like, fuck it, let's go follow through, but by hook or by crook, whether it's good or not. Some people don't even know how to take the first step. So I was like, fuck, wouldn't it be awesome if I could show them the whole process? They've now been here for the birth of the idea, which is rare to have a microphone on the moment of inspiration. Not just like most people hear about movies when it's like, they cast it or they got a budget or it's at a studio. There was an audience that listened to this come alive literally while the podcast happened. So I said, for those people who are already listening and heard it come to life, wouldn't it be amazing to just keep it going and show them, okay, I'm going to open source the movie, kids. This is how you do it. Everything's allowed. Like, don't worry about it. And, some people are like, well, of course you could do it because you make movies for a living. Bullshit, man. I hadn't made a movie in 3 fucking years. And the last movie I made, I stood on the stage at Sundance and I was like, go fuck yourselves. So I was not a popular cat, and nobody wanted to give me money to make movies and stuff. But sometimes you got to follow through. You just got to chase an idea. I was obsessed with seeing the Walrus movie, and seeing it made me so happy. And it also it led to a bunch of other shit. But just watching the movie, man, finally that movie existed, and it was a movie I dreamed about in this weird podcast. But bringing it to life with the audience watching, the audience that I care about, the ones that are who've been with me from the beginning, or the ones who listen to just the podcast, but the people who allow me, everyone's sitting out there in the audience, the people that allow me to like walk around dressed like a hockey player and do whatever the fuck I want for a living. Like here, it was a small portion of them who were like, we want to do what you do, we don't know how. And I was like, fuck, man, the least I could do is show them this. They've given me their money by buying movies or whatever the fuck, given me their attention. They've given me a long enough tail where people still take me seriously in this business 2 decades in, even though I've never had a blockbuster. Like, not even fucking close, man. I usually have like a block closer. The movie opens and closes in 2 minutes and stuff. The whole Tusk experience was so reminiscent of Mallrats, you know, where it was just like, man, this looks like it might work on some level. And then it didn't, but it'll live forever. Like, this is one of those movies that from now until the end of time, people will be coming up to me and being like, oh man, I love Tusk. It was such a great movie. And I could say, wasn't it? And then people will come up to me and say, oh man, I saw Tusk. You fat piece of shit. I hate that movie, man. What a piece. Why'd you make that? It's terrible. And I could say, wasn't it? You know, it's a movie I can, I can't really, like, most people when they get in my face about it, they're like, what the fuck with that movie, man? It's a piece of shit. And I go, yeah, but like it was in focus. You know, and that's, they have nowhere to go with that. I'm not going to argue the subjectivity of art. Of course, I'm happy to know there's some people that are like sane enough to be like, what I just saw was wrong. You know, that's fine for me, man. It creates discussion and stuff. So showing that audience how we went from like a dopey idea to bringing it to life became so important to me, man, because I was like, in this dopey way, I can give back to somebody who's like, fuck, how do I do what this fat piece of shit did? And so we gave him this like little blueprint, man, and it was such a cool ride right up until the end, even with the theatrical release. Like, I wish it did more and stuff, but it wasn't, in my case, in a movie at budget this low and subject matter this weird, nobody across the boards was expecting like big results. This was always meant to be a home video movie, but having it in theaters was part of the thrill, man. Like, I was just like, wow, I would love to see this on the big screen, and I did. I saw it 5 times in a movie theater, and it was packed each time, but I was there speaking. Like, if I could have gone to every screening, I might have packed the house. But there were a bunch of people on Twitter the night the movie opened going, I am sitting in a movie theater all by myself. Is this part of the experience? You know, I felt bad. So, you know, I think the important part of the story is just like chase the whimsy, man. Believe me, I had 1,000 Monday morning quarterbacks after the movie opened going, look at what he did. It was fucking stupid and nobody fucking cared. Ha ha ha. You're going to get that. That happens, man. It's just like jackasses will bray. What are you going to do, man? But never let somebody put you off what you think is a cool thing. Like, it's a stupid movie, but it's my stupid movie. And I did it. Rather than let it die as a podcast or sit around and be like, yeah, man, that would have been fun. All right, back to reality. You make your own fucking reality. And in my reality, I want to see that fucking Walrus movie, man, even if I've got to put my name on it, which I did, and I'll be proud to. I hope they put it on my tombstone. This fat piece of shit made Tusk. Exclamation. But the important thing is just do it, man. Like, don't stop. And some people tried, people armchair critics or people that think they know the business or write about the business but aren't even actually in the business, tried to tell me I failed left and right, but I'm like, no, it opened up the door to 4 more movies, dude. And also, it created a discussion. And once it goes to home video, which is where it belongs, that's where everybody's going to find it, just like Mallrats.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Well, apart from answering my first question and about the next 7 I was going to ask you, what I'm going to do is...
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I give
don't
very
worry.
long...
No, that was just amazing.
I make up for... I have a very small dick. I make up with very long answers.
We have a queue of people here waiting to ask you questions, so I'm going to hand over to them. So our first person, would you like to ask your question to Kevin?
Hello there, Kevin.
Hello.
I'm a huge fan. I've been watching all your films since 5 years ago, since my dad introduced me to all of your stuff. I've been hooked on it ever since, even with all the smodcasts. And
thank you. Oh, I love listening to podcasts.
I ran out of questions because you just answered them all for me. So my sister wants to know, she does creative writing in university.
I tend to want to over-deliver, man. I grew up a fat kid, so instantly, in order to not get beat up, you got to over-deliver. And, when it comes to ladies, that means, like, you're killer at oral. If you're ladies in the audience, if you see a lonely fat man, take him home right now, because he will eat the fuck out of you.
So basically, my sister wants to know, is it acceptable to use your comic books to roll a spliff?
I feel dirty now. You didn't tell me your sister was there. Let me see. Yes, absolutely. Using a comic book to roll a spliff is about as sacred as a priest raising the Eucharist and turning it from wafer into flesh. That's the combination of two holy things.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
This is actually really an honor. I'm obsessed with you right now.
It'll pass, trust me. Anybody who gets obsessed with me for a minute, give it 2 weeks. You'll be like, why was I interested in that fucking dude? Jordan. Ow. There.
It's been a year. And my American friend showed me, and I'm just into it, man. I'm in the hole, and I'm loving it.
Thank you.
I'm actually going to go out and say that I'm a filmmaker right now, and my aim in life is to smoke a joint with you one day. That is my aim. Like, after that, I can die. That's
Mom, can you grab my joints?
No, man.
I was smoke one with you here, but I don't have one handy.
I was thinking that, but I think it would be inappropriate in the town hall. But yeah.
Oh, maybe inappropriate for you, but my mother tonight was just like, you could smoke in the house. I was like, hey, I am a man.
I wish my mum was like that. Anyway, my question is, you're coming out with Clerks 3. This is the first time you come back to the View Askew universe, really. And how does it feel to go back to something that you've created? And what do you think about kind of universes in general, thinking about like Marvel universe and things like that?
Okay. So I love it. I wrote the script a while back, started at 135 pages, now at 96 pages. This is going to sound entirely fucking gross, but when I'm watching TV or looking for something to watch, crawling through Netflix, looking for something, and I don't find anything that I want to watch, I usually, this sounds sick, but I turn to my laptop and I reread the Clerks 3 script because it's my favorite program. It's my favorite movie. It just hasn't been shot yet. So before I shoot it, and one day I'll have time with all the footage and I'll cut it together, but right now it's my favorite go-to piece of entertainment. Sometimes I just sit there, get baked, and read the script. Like, I love Dante and Randall, so I love seeing where the story goes. And it's such a large story. Like, it's a story that I could not have told 20 years ago, and I'm not saying that's better. It's just I couldn't do Clerks today because I don't fucking work in the service industry. I work for the audience. Thankfully I don't really have a boss except for the people that buy tickets to stuff. So for me to be like, this is what it's like to work in retail, would seem really inauthentic. So I had to find a different approach to Clerks 3, and the approach we took is really authentic, particularly to the world that I live in now. I like it so much. Jeff's back. Brian's back, me and Jason, of course, are back, Rosario's back, and the story goes in a really weird, wonderful direction. I don't want to give too much away, but it's about, basically, it's kind of, I've described it many ways. I've said this is like our Empire Strikes Back, even though it's the last one, so that wouldn't make sense. But it's kind of like, if I wanted to get fancy, and since we're at a film festival, I guess we can get fancy, it's kind of my Cinema Paradiso. People are like, what the fuck is Cinema Paradiso? Cinema Paradiso is a movie they made many years ago. Really wonderful film, Italian flick. Seek it out. It'll make you fucking cry. Particularly if you're sitting in a film festival, Cinema Paradiso is a movie that will make you bawl. It is a beautiful film about the love of films, and that's kind of what Clerks 3 is about.
So when are we likely to actually see Clerks 3 on the big screen?
We start shooting in June, so I don't know when it'll come out after that, but we start shooting June 2015. So we're about 7 months away from starting. I'm excited, man, because I love reading the script, but I can't wait to see it come to life. Trevor, who played Elias in Clerks 2, is back, and he has some of my favorite scenes that I've ever written, hands down. Shit that like makes me cry out loud, laughing. It's so funny. And I know that sounds gross. People are like, this fat piece of shit laughs at his own jokes. I am that fat piece of shit.
Thank you very much. Just one last thing. What you're saying in the podcast and everything that you do right now, like this, and the coming to the UK with the comic book movie, it inspires filmmakers. I think you're going to see a lot of like little Kevin Smiths, whether you want to see that or not. It's going to happen.
If I want to see little Kevin Smiths, I'll jerk off in a gym sock. Thank you, sir.
Cool. Next question.
Hi, Kevin. You're cool. I'm slightly less cool. Well, a lot more. But
Don't believe that hype. I just have a better publicist. Trust me, you're way cooler than me. You're at a fucking international film festival. I'm at my mother's house.
anyway, I was just wondering, what's the sort of influence on the monsters for yoga hosers? Like, what do they sort of look like, or can you give us any sort of hints?
He wants some spoiler action. What can I give you? I don't want to spoil it because it is fucked up. It's really wonderful. I can't take all the credit for it. Robert Kurtzman, who did the effects on Tusk, he made our walrus, the walrus. He's also done the effects for this. What I can say is the movie Yoga Hosers plays out as like John Hughes movie or as Clueless for the first 45 minutes, and then it becomes Gremlins.
Awesome. Thank you, man. See you soon.
Thank you.
Sweet. Okay, another question.
Hey, I saw your daughter playing one of the clerks in Tusk, and I heard that she's going to be in Yoga Hosers as well. I was just wondering what it was like working with and sort of directing your daughter.
It was weird, man. Like, honestly, there was a certain point every day where I'd be watching her, because as a director, you don't really look at the set, you look at the monitor, what's being shot. So the set's right there. You could look at both, but I tend to watch the monitor. So there I'm looking at the monitor, and she's acting in a scene. There she is acting at one point, she was acting with Tony Hale, who's in a show over here called Veep, but he's also in Arrested Development. One of my favorite comedic actors, man. And so I was like, oh my God, there's Tony Hale talking to something that came out of my balls. And they're telling jokes that came out of my mind. Like, it was very trippy. So every day there was a little moment like that. But the biggest overwhelming, like, I had a real life lesson while we were making the flick, man. It was that hands down the most fun I ever had making a movie. It'll always be my favorite, right? Because it was like me working with my kid. Like, I never saw that. That wasn't written in the stars. It just kind of happened accidentally because of this dopey scene in Tusk. So I'm on set with the kid. And how I direct, I'm not very good at the job, but a lot of actors like working with me because I'm not one of these directors like tries to get in their heads or tries to give them weird motivation. I'm not the director that says, you're a gazelle and everyone else is a lion and you don't want them to know you're a gazelle. Act. I don't do that stuff. I just go, let's shoot a take, and then right after we'll watch it and we'll see how we did. So we shoot one, and then I bring the actor over to the monitor, and we watch it right away and go like, all right, since I'm the editor as well, I'm selecting takes right there while I'm watching the action. So let's say I've got a long take, and I'm watching it with the actor or actress, and I'm like, okay, this is in the movie right here. This is in the movie. This is awesome. I can't believe you said this and pulled it off. This bit, I bet you we can get one more. We get it better. Then the actor's like, hey, can I do this or this or this? Or the actor says, what about if I say this? And then I say, go ahead, absolutely go do it. So I had a moment like that with my kid on set, man, where I was like sitting behind the monitor after a take, and she had done a scene. Usually she's in almost every scene with her friend Lily Rose, who plays the other girl clerk. They're both named Colleen. So she was in a scene with Austin Butler, and it was a girl-boy scene and stuff. And so after the scene, she came over and watched it, and I was going through the take with her, going, okay, you do this. This is excellent. This is in the movie. I'm using this. This one we could do better. Maybe take one more take, go louder. And then she's like, can I say this? And I'm like, go ahead, run in there and do it. And then she went in and started acting. I was like, right on, man. That's so damn cool, man. There's a little kid that I've raised her. She started Journey Inside My Nuts, and now she is on a movie set acting, and how fun and blah, blah, blah. And suddenly I had this overwhelming, thunderstruck feeling that kind of redefined how I looked at myself from that point forward, which was very strange. I think it's important to always be the hero of your own story. You get one life only. Why the fuck would you hero worship somebody else? Make yourself the hero of your story. And in my case, I'm very self-satisfied because I know where I came from and I know where I wound up and I know the journey is incredible. It may not have been akin to becoming a fucking astronaut, but the fact that I went from where I was to what I've done in life and got away with it for 20 years, I always feel like the fucking hero of my story. In the book of life, my life, fucking I'm character number one and shit like that. And so I've always felt like that, even when I was a kid, long before I was making movies. Important to have that kind of self-esteem, not diluted self-esteem. Just make yourself the hero of your own story. So I've always felt that way up until that moment. She walked away. She starts acting in the scene. And then all of a sudden I was fucking overcome by the notion that, oh shit, I've been deluding myself my entire fucking career, man. I thought all this shit, everything I've done, the movies and whatnot, or I could be like, I made Clerks, bitches, or fucking Dogma, like whatever the fuck. My long tail that I could throw out, I thought I was the fucking hero of this story, man. I really thought that I was the Odysseus. I was the Odysseus of this gigantic fucking weird New Jersey odyssey into indie and or bad film. But I realized as I'm sitting there watching her act, I was like, this has never been about me, was it? Like, this was all me getting ready. The entire 20 years of my career, sitting there writing, I'm not supposed to be here today, and a fucking stink palm, and fucking like the guy who's like can't get over the fact that his girlfriend slept with chicks, which seems weird now that I think about it. The movie about the angels and shit, all that shit, man, was just prelude. I did all those movies not because they were epic chapters of my giant book. I just had to learn how to direct a movie so that one day, when she needed me, my 15-year-old kid could stand in front of me on a movie set and be like, what the fuck do I do? And I could literally tell her and send her off to do a fucking good job. And I realized at that point, it's not me. I'm not the fucking hero here. It's her fucking story, and I'm just the character that fucking sets her up. And I'm a big watcher of Game of Thrones, right? And so on Game of Thrones, man, you got Ariana, the little girl. She's got this sword teacher, the dude who's teaching her the water dancing and shit with the wooden fucking sword. And you're like, this guy's a badass, man. He's from Brazos and shit like that. And then all of a sudden, fucking Lannister bitches come in, fucking take this guy out, and he's like, run! And she takes off, and you never see that fucker again. And I was like, I'm that fucking guy. I'm not the hero of this story. I'm just the guy that sets up the little girl who you're now going to follow for the rest of the fucking journey. And so it was kind of overwhelming, particularly for an egocentric, arrogant person such as myself, to finally process, like, this has never been about you. It's always been about her. Now step back and let her fucking grow. It was a real teaching moment for myself.
Cool. Thank you. Cool.
Hey, Kevin, how are you doing?
We've got a few
You're
more.
doing great.
If you're happy to keep going, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. I got some.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Kevin, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Johnny Depp was on your next movie. You know.
Yes, yes.
I didn't really expect to see him in Tusk. That was a genuine surprise.
Either.
How was he in the boarding room? You know, when you're there showing him the story, was he like, still better than The Tourist? You know, what was it like? I mean,
I didn't understand what you said, but I guess it's like what was
his reaction to the overall film. How was he like? You know, when you were showing him the
Well,
story.
this is what I learned while I was making Tusk, man. We shot for 2 days with him. All the stuff with Guy Lapointe takes place. We shot over 2 days, 2 production days, because there's a lot of talk, but it's like people sitting in one place. So I'm a cutter, you know, the guy that edits the movie. So the next day, I always bring in what we shot and show the cast and crew what we did so they can see the movie come to life. You know, otherwise they get to see it at the screening at the end, and what's the fucking point? If you can show them what we're doing, it not only makes them go, oh shit, this is a reality, not just fucking some words on a page or some fucking, I'm getting paid to lug this cable from here to here. We're actually fucking making something. But you could also self-correct. You can see what you've done and be like, ooh, I would like to do something a little better and shit. So I always cut it, bring it in, and share it with people. And so second day we were shooting with Guy Lapointe. Guy Lapointe is sitting in the chair getting his makeup on. And I come in, bring him the laptop, and I was like, hey, man, look what you did. And I went to show him the scene, press play, and he goes, oh, no. And that's my best Guy Lapointe impression. And I said, really? He goes, no, I don't watch. And I go, any movie or just mine? And he said, no, I don't like to look at my performance. He's going, I like to do it and move on. And so his process is to kind of like give everything he can on the set and then walk away like, not me, I don't know who did that. Like he doesn't sit around and dwell on it. So I was like, really, man? Do you watch anything? He goes, I go to all the premieres and I do all the press, but the moment I'm supposed to be in the movie, I get up and leave. He's like, I can't watch myself. And I thought that was really interesting, man, because like I've worked, of course, one of my favorite people in the world to work with my entire early career was Batfleck himself, Ben Affleck. And he's the opposite. He's the 180-degree guy who, when you're about to look at your dailies, sits right next to you with a bowl of popcorn going, let's watch this genius. We got lucky. Our kids have gone to school with each other for about a decade or so, and so I've known him through the kids, and he's a wonderful human being, Mr. Guy Lapointe himself, and he's so cool. We never talk. I was never like, we should do a movie together, because that would be creepy. And also, he makes huge movies, and I make Kevin Smith movies. But he was always such a cool guy to be around. Like when you got to go to kid functions or birthday parties and shit, always talk to him. And like, you know, you'd be sitting there chit-chatting and you're like, periodically you're thunderstruck. He's so calm and normal, but periodically you're thunderstruck by, this is the greatest actor of our generation, man. This is nuts. But he likes to talk about music. He's just a fun guy, really nice guy. But I'd never talked about working together, because what was I going to do? Hey, man, you want to play Silent Bob's wacky uncle? Like, there was really nothing. So here I was with this Tusk thing, and I had written the part of Guy Lapointe for Quentin Tarantino to play as an homage, because without Quentin, I probably wouldn't have discovered the genius of Michael Parks. And I've now made 2 movies with the great Michael Parks, and so I was like, let me put Quentin in as Guy Lapointe. He had already done a very convincing Australian accent in Django. And this would be perfect for you know, our French-Canadian character is very over the top, so he could totally take that accent and run with it. And so Shannon McIntosh, who's one of our producers, brought him the script. They're very tight. They've worked together many times over the years. And the word we got back was like, he's not acting right now. And I wasn't sure if it was he's not acting right now or he's not acting in this, but either way, he wasn't acting in it. What I'd heard later on was he thought we had offered him the part of Wallace. Like, he's like, I thought you wanted me to play the fucking walrus. So regardless, we got word back that he wasn't doing it. And I was like, fuck, man, I got no Guy Lapointe. He was the guy I actually wrote it for in my head and stuff. And so I was like, who could I go to next? And then I said, all right, you're pushing whimsy. Whole fucking project's about pushing whimsy and about like, hey, just see what could happen. So I was like, remove everything. Low budget, fact that a movie's like under $3 million, fact that it's a movie about a fucking guy who turns another guy into a walrus, the fact that, you know, fucking it came from a podcast, like, remove it all. Social strata. Who would be the best actor for this role? And I said, hands down, man, like, fucking, that guy would crush it. So, you know, I had his number from some function we had done with the kids, and I texted him and said, hey, man, like, I hate to be this guy, but I have a movie you'd be great for, you know. And that was a text for him. So he said, what was it about? And I sent him a link for a blog that I had written, and it could familiarize him instantly. It was me talking about the Walrus Yes experience or whatever. And so I told him I want to make this movie because Michael Parks is in it. I want to shine a light on him and stuff. I thought he didn't get as much props as he deserved on Red State, and that was probably because of me. I said, I'd love to make a movie where I could just shine a light on that dude. You take away the sex and the politics of Red State, and you just let him read batshit crazy monologues and be amazing in front of a camera and find new ways to deliver lines. And so at that point, I was like, all right, man, what do you think? And he wrote back very simply, I love Michael Parks. And so he said, please send the script. And I sent him the script, and like 3 weeks later, man, he texted me back and he said, I just read the script. And he writes beautifully. He's like such a good writer. I also think he's a fantastic director. And there's a lot of the shit in the Guy Lapointe scene that he did subconsciously or consciously, but not overtly going, move the camera here. Just simple places he put his body that gave us optimum shots that only when I was editing, I was like, this guy knows exactly where to fucking be, exactly where, I mean, you realize he's been doing it 3 decades, but he has such a filmmaker's eye, man. But he's also very eloquent, and his texts were wonderfully eloquent about thanking me for thinking of him. He's such a good actor, made me think like it was a privilege to be in this stupid walrus movie. But, you know, it was so sweet. He was just like, I would love, he goes, this is the exact sort of thing I would love to swim around in. So we shot 15 days of the movie in North Carolina and then wrapped for like 3 months. And then back in March, we had 2 days where he was done with whatever he was shooting. And he was like, let's go, let's shoot. And so we shot for 2 days out in Los Angeles. And it was a blast, man. Like, hands down, it was a great time. You don't really direct a guy like that. Just like Michael Parks. Like, I take no credit for these performances. Like, in a case of Guy Lapointe or Michael Parks, you don't, you know, you watch the take, and you say cut, and then you walk over to them, and you're just like, holy fuck. And then you turn around and walk away because there's nothing to correct or add. They're just fucking brilliance, man. Justin, same way. So at a certain point, it was fun because as much as I'm the director, I just got to sit there and watch this dude crush, dude. Just like, I didn't tell him to do the accent. He told me, he's like, I have an internal dimmer. I can go as high or as low with the accent as you want, as realistic or as fucking corny. And I said, please, please, take the corny, man, right away. So, but he was so damn giving, dude, and so fun on the set. And then on day 2, all of a sudden, like, we brought our kids into the show, and that was never planned. It kind of happened accidentally, but it was a real happy accident. And that became, until we made Yoga Hosers, like my favorite day of shooting ever, because there I am, like, directing my kid, there he is directing his kid. And they were acted on camera with dialogue for the first time. Like, Harley had been in bit parts in my movies growing up. Lily Rose had never been on camera, and they took their first steps into the you know, the circus. It was so wonderful and whatnot. And at the end of that scene, he goes, "This is what we should do, man. We should live off these kids." And he was joking, but I was like, he's got a point. And and so I started writing Yoga Hosers. I started thinking about Yoga Hosers, man. Like, I after editing the scene of the 2 girls in the convenience store, I became so, like, fixated on it. I'd watch that part over and over again, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and I brought it to my wife, and I was like, why do I love this scene so much? It can't just be that it's Harley. Like, I've had people I love in movies before, and I'm not, like, that profoundly affected. I was like, is it that they're wearing red smocks? Like, is it that they're in Canada? Is it that they got these shitty We Hate American faces on? Like, why am I so drawn to this scene? And my wife was like, Kevin, it's the story of your life. It's 2 fucking people standing behind a convenience store counter. And I was like, oh my God, it's Girl Clerks. That's why I like it. So I started writing that. I started writing that movie. I was like, I could work to that performance level. Like, they have to be no better than they were in that Tusk scene. And I can build a whole movie around them, put really talented, funny people around them, and have this weird Gremlins-like adventure. But then something amazing happened. We stepped on set, and fucking, it's in the blood, I guess, at least for the one kid. Because those kids were they were flawless. It was nuts. Like, acting is a job of making choices. And I thought going into the Yoga Hosers experience that I would be like working them like marionette puppets and stuff. The same way I directed Jason Mewes on Clerks. It would be more about me going, say it like this, do it like this. But all of a sudden, like, by the end of day 1, I realized that I hadn't given them any notes, direction. I hadn't really gone over and said, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Like, they were intuiting how to deliver lines and stuff. And so by day 2, I pulled the girls aside and I was like, look, I'm not telling you how to do these things. I didn't tell you how to say that. I didn't tell you how to deliver that line or react. Please tell me what adult is directing you behind my back and doing a better job. And they didn't. They were like, we just learned from watching TV. So it was a blast, man. Suddenly you were working with your kid and working with the greatest actor of a generation. And it was all because you pushed a little whimsy. It was all because you sent a text. I figured, like, worst case scenario, he'd find a very polite way of being like, oh, I'm busy or something. But thank God I wrote that, man. It just made it such a more fun, rich experience. And we'd already had our financing. We were already off and running. So he came into it in the most comfortable way. There was no pressure like, we need you to get the movie made. It was just like, dude, come in. You don't see his name in the credits because, like, the whole thing was supposed to be like, no, we were never going to say anything and keep it quiet and then just let people write on the internet like, who is that? Blah, blah, blah. It says it's played by Guy Lapointe. But then Yoga Hosers happened, and suddenly they announced Yoga Hosers right before Tusk came out, and the world knew that he was going to be in that, and all the articles were like, he was in Tusk as well. So it kind of got a little bit spoiled. But I like the idea of people discovering it, not knowing what it is. Like I love this idea. like some 80 fucking year old person sitting there clicking around TV, and they fall on this because Michael Parks looks old, and they're like, I like watching old people. And they watch the whole movie, and it blows their hair back, and they want to know who Guy Lapointe is, and they just believe that it's a guy named Guy Lapointe, man. So he's so convincing. He loves to get lost in it. I was happy to not have his name like on the actual movie, because I was like, this will be cool. But now going into the next one, it's real. I'll be honest with you, it's very cool having his name on the movie. It makes me feel like, as a filmmaker, I'm like, right on, man. Like, I love actors, and now I get to work with the best. And at the same time, we get to work with our kids. And so the movie turned into something cool. I mean, there's some people online who are like, this seems like the biggest play date or babysitting job in cinema history. It wasn't. It turned into something real. And our financiers were like, do you want to do it again next summer? And I was like, yeah, oh God, if whoever picks this up wants to make it again, I'd be happy to do another one. And they were like, no, seriously, do you want to go again? And so I was like, yeah, they greenlit a sequel already, man. So it was fun. It was wonderful. And all of that led back to, of course, Mr. Guy Lapointe himself.
Well, congratulations on having the chance to work with Johnny Depp. I wish you the best with the next movie. And you, sir, are a genius. I mean, it's just a great privilege to have this chat with you over microphone. So am I okay just to get a quick picture, even though it's video chat? Okay. Oh, wow.
Okay, this is possibly a new one. We have Skype selfie.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay. We're getting to the end of the queue now, so just a couple more questions.
Okay. Hi, Kevin. First of all, I wanted to say I really enjoyed the film.
Thank you.
I like the fact that you couldn't see what was coming, so that was a bit interesting. But I wanted to know, did you have any sort of struggles regarding the ending? Because was it hard to decide to keep him alive or kill him? Because I kind of thought killing him would have been a more humane option.
Yeah, it's a weird ending. But I was dialed into that ending because that podcast with Scott Mosier, that was one of the things, as you heard, that like at the end of the movie during the credits, that was part of the discussion. That podcast was one of my favorite moments of my entire life, and that made me laugh harder than anything that ever made me laugh in recent memory. The notion of this motherfucker being trapped in that suit, so grisly. You can hear us on the podcast, like, ha ha ha, and he brings him fucking fish, ha ha ha. So for me, there was no question. Like that ending, in order to honor the podcast, the ending always had to take place 1 year later, where they bring him fucking fish, and he's trapped as a walrus forever. And it's crazy because it's just like, somebody get a pair of scissors and clip him out of that fucking thing. But if you follow the logic of the movie, such as it is, like he went full walrus. Like there's no coming back. And so I was kind of dialed into the ending. I've seen a lot of people go, why didn't they just end it with like Guy Lapointe lowering his gun and cutting the block? Absolutely, absolutely. And that would have been a totally valid ending. But, I always would have been like, I missed. I cheaped out on the real ballsy, stupid fucking ending. Like, the idea was just like, let me make a movie, let me see if I could take a dopey fucking story and a really dopey ending and make it sing with real actors who are playing it like it's fucking Argo. So I needed that ending.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, another question?
Yeah, so big fan of all your work.
Thank you.
Both Smodcasts, comic books as well. Just wondered which was your, basically, if you had to pick one medium to work in, movies, TV, comics, Smodcasts, which it'd be and why?
Podcasting. So easy and not easy like I'm a lazy fat ass, although I am. It's just easily accessible. And also, like, in terms of self-expression, which is what all this fucking bullshit's about, right? Like, I want to express myself. It's the cheapest and least inconvenient for people. It doesn't demand a lot. It's not like, give me a bunch of money and a movie star so I can tell a story. You sit down and it's storytelling that's oral, AURAL, goes right in. And so you have to kind of create the world for them, word picture and stuff. I don't know, like, to me, if somebody was like, had a gun to my head and they were like, you got to pick one, I think it'd be easily podcasting. It's not the sexiest one. It certainly doesn't pay anything and stuff. Movies are definitely the sexy. Like, I stopped making movies for 3 years, man, and I was just podcasting. And, my wife was always like, she loved me making movies. And when I was like, I'm done, she was like, all right. But the moment I started making Tusk again, I noticed I started getting fucked way better, man. So So she, the movies is the sexy, but like for me as a story, and that's all I consider myself as a storyteller. I don't think I'm a filmmaker. I don't think I'm this or that. I think I'm a storyteller. The best storytelling I can do, the medium where I am at my absolute best, is when it's just me talking, when I can just pull a story out and keep going. It's the one that's least inconvenient to everybody else. It's not you pulling together a bunch of money, assets, and actors and their time to do it. You just sit down, you start talking. So it would be podcasting.
Thanks, man.
Okay, we have a final question from the floor, so I hope this is a good one.
Hi, Kevin. First, I just want to say thank you for making such a beautifully fucked up movie.
Thank you. Thank you for sitting through it, man. I'm sure some people were like, blimey, and out they went.
Yeah, my question is, you mentioned before about being on stage at Sundance with Red State and kind of saying fuck you to the movie industry, and just how do you feel about that now, like 4 years later? How do you feel about having said that? Do you still stand by it?
Yeah, I mean, it was, to me, if you go back and listen to it, it was a frustration with distribution and marketing, how expensive it had gotten to take a movie out. So it wasn't like, go fuck yourselves for making fucking dog shit movies. It was not really an attack on anybody as much as it was an attack on the idea that I made a movie once for $5 million, and they spent $10 million putting commercials on TV to open it. And I was like, this is fucking madness. Like, an indie filmmaker, man, what's the point of competing anymore, man? Where you can keep your budget low. Like, as the filmmaker, I have utter control of keeping things under control with the budget. I can go to a friend and say, dude, I can't pay you. Please do this for less. I could go to a crew member and be like, dude, take the lowest rate. I'll hit you up on the next movie. I'll make it up to you. I have given up my salary. Let me see. I got paid nothing on Red State. I think I got paid to edit because I put my money back in the movie. This is unbelievable. But on Cop Out, I gave up half my salary to get the movie made. Some people were like, that's where you cashed in. I was like, no, that was where they got some of my money. Clerks 2, I made no money to do. I'm in it just to see the movie happen, man. So the money aspect of it to me is always kind of the least interesting. To me, it's kind of like by hook or by crook, bring that shit alive. And if I got to give up money to do it, so be it. So I could keep the budget low. I could control it, and I can turn over something that's like, this is what we made, and we made it low budget here. And then I was in a world where suddenly all they did was market to the tune of $10 to $20 million. And when you do that on a $5 million movie, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, it's madness. Like, you could keep a budget low and be an indie filmmaker and tell the world you're an indie filmmaker, but when it comes time to advertise your movie, try going into a newspaper, magazine, the television networks, and be like, I'm an indie filmmaker. Can you charge me less because what we do takes grit? Fuck no. They'll go tell you to go fuck yourself, and you're paying the same rate as the Avengers. So suddenly, to compete with indie film, you were paying the same rates as major studio releases, and that was my frustration, man. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going to take Red State out by myself. And it was gratifying, because rather than just be like, the system's broken, fuck this, I was like, let me try to do something different rather than just do the same fucking thing. Let me see if I can fucking fix it, at least in my little world. So that was gratifying, man. With Tusk, I hadn't made a movie in 3 years. The people that financed it, Demarest, when they first sat down with me, they were like, we're going to want to release this movie, like sell it and release it in theaters, not like what you did with Red State. Are you okay with that? And I said, absolutely. I said, I always saw this as an art house movie, and I was ready to pay for it myself. I would never use Kickstarter. I'm not judgmental against it, but I think it's for the next generation. I could always, worst case scenario, I should call up Affleck Starter instead. So I've always tried to stay away from crowdsourced financing. But at the end of the day, I knew I could scrape together the money and kind of make it happen and stuff without reaching out to the audience, as long as you can keep the budget low. But the notion of doing that and then turning it over to people that then just pour marketing money syrup on it was really tough. And so the Demarest people were like, are you going to be okay with that? And I said, it's your money, it's your movie. I said, the movie I did, I'm totally happy to take it on the road. We had done Red State, and we had just finished up the Jay and Silent Bob Super Groovy Cartoon Movie Tour, which for us was very successful. Movie cost $69,000 after our first live show, because you're showing the movie and then Q&A afterwards. we were already in the black. The movie was in profit. Jason bought a house off of that tour. So like, you know, I was like, we can totally take Tusk this way, and I take it directly to the audience, and it's the movie and then the Q&A, and it's more fun that way. And you know, it's, you don't have to put TV commercials and all that crap. But they were looking for like a traditional release. And I said, if we do that, please just do it with A24, which is a company in the United States that I really wanted to release through. They had released Spring Breakers and The Bling Ring. They were this brand new upstart company, reminded me of young Miramax. So I was like, okay, just as long as we're with them, I'm okay with that. And the guy, Sam Engelbart, was like, oh, the guy who runs A24 is one of my closest friends. So suddenly I was like, right on, man. We're going to be with a marketer that knows how to market the movie. I'm utterly okay with that. But looking back now, in terms of how the movie was released in the States, I thought the campaign was wonderful. I mean, we went out on 600 screens. That was dopey. Early on, I was like, maybe we should go out New York and LA, because that's what we used to do when I was a kid, see if there's any interest and then roll it out. But some of the deals were predicated on a large release. So suddenly we were on 600 screens, but we didn't spend the money it requires to open on 600 screens. And there was a lot of like, his social media will take care of the rest. And that's not how people learn about movies that much, man. It really still is the TV business and stuff. So in retrospect, I probably could have done the exact same thing that we did in theaters with Tusk, just taking it to like 10 or 20 screenings like we did with Red State. But like, you know, I was happy to go through the process again. And, you know, in some ways it made me feel like, right on, I wasn't that stupid with Red State. Like, I was really on the money and stuff. But it also opened up everything for me. I worked with the cats at A24. They were lovely. I worked with these cats XYZ. They sold it internationally, Tusk, as well as like Yoga Hosers. And that's how we wound up like with Sony International throughout the rest of the world. So, you know, for me at that time when I stood on the stage and talked about marketing, it remains frustrating, but like you can't beat the system. Like I'm here to report, unfortunately, that if you want to open a movie seriously, people have to know that movie exists. And primarily how people learn about movies still to this day, even in the age of the internet, man, is television commercials. And so, you know, it's like you got to accept the fact. Like with Yoga Hosers, it's a PG-13 movie. Like, I hope they spend a lot of money marketing the movie, and that's something I wouldn't have said 4 years ago. But I don't want to see, you know, it open into a void where people are like, oh, that movie came out? Like, Justin Long was in Austin, and he was hanging out at a movie theater talking to kids, man, and they were like, when's that Walrus movie coming out? And he's like, it's playing right now. So, you know, next time around, man, I hope they market the hell out of a movie. I'll be quiet and be like, right on, that's what you do, that's what works, I get it. But I know there's an alternative that works as well. And it's good to have that. It's good to know that, like, nobody could ever say no. There's no gatekeeper who could say, like, we're not doing that. And then I'm like, oh, I'll just put it in a drawer. I always know that I could sit there and be like, right on, well, I could pay for it myself, and I could take it on tour. I love going on tour, man. It's awesome. Obviously, look at me, I'm still fucking talking way after the time. So to me, like, what part of the excitement of Red State was being in a theater, watching the movie with the audience. I saw it in every public exhibition in North America. I was in the theater when it played. It was an amazing experience, man. It was like going to a Bible revival show, a tent revival show or something. So I love that, and I know that works. And not only did I do it with Red State, but we did it again with Jay and Silent Bob's Super Groovy Cartoon Movie. So I know if anything ever falls apart, or people are like, we don't want to make your shit anymore, and I still want to make my shit, I know I can go directly to the audience and tour it like I did, and it was lovely. So, you know, I guess I'm certainly not like discouraging kids. Well, we're talking about movies over a certain budget level, but like getting the word out about movies, man, is still an expensive endeavor, and TV is the thing that fucking works. So if I want to play in that game, I just have to be like, that's what it costs. And so it's weird for me because these movies are inexpensive. Like, this movie, probably they should have, in order to open it, they should have spent $10 million. But that seems ridiculous. A $2.7 million movie where they're spending $10 million to let you know that it exists, just so that you can post better numbers at the box office. And like the box office, like receipts, yes, of course, we'd all love it to be better, but most of your money is made like on home video, when the movie kind of lives its life where everybody can access it. And that's why you keep the budget low. It would have been really shitty for me to be like, this Tusk movie is going to cost $20 million, man. Like, I wish I could have kept it even lower, but the effects cost a little bit. So, no, I mean, in terms of the shit I said in Red State stage, I still stand by. Unfortunately, that's what the system is. But rather than just bitch, you know, I decided to be change and took the movie out and now created for myself an alternative way to distribute a movie should I need it. But right now I've got people who want to finance the stuff and people who want to take it out. Like they published an article in the Hollywood Reporter today. We did very well. The AFM is going on in Los Angeles now, a bunch of foreign sales. So a lot of territories got picked up for Yoga Hosers. So, while there's still interest, I'm going to ride that interest, but know that I could always just self-distribute in four-wall, man. And it was all equally satisfying. In some cases, honestly, more satisfying to self-distribute. Like I'm not saying it's an art form to release a movie on 2,000 screens, but all it takes is a shit ton of money, man, to like pack a theater and stuff without spending money. And that's what we did on the Red State tour. Was thrilling. It was like, how else can we do it? All right, let's get on the radio for free. Let me tweet things. Let me hit up Facebook. Filling it the way I would if I'd started my career that way. And since I didn't really have a traditional career where I never really got to go through experimental film or kind of make a few movies before getting discovered, the very first movie we made was Clerks, and suddenly I was picked up by Miramax and we were off and running. It feels nice 2 decades in to still be fucking around with the kids, like to be doing experimental stuff. Like, let me see if this Walrus movie fucking works out and shit. Or let me try doing it this way. And Kickstarter and Indiegogo were tempting, but like I said, if I jump in that pool, I'm a big fat piece of shit. I sponge up all the money and stuff. I feel like leave it out there for them. And, if the audience really wants to support me, they can come out and see the movie, buy the video and stuff like that. But, as the older you get, you got to find ways to keep it interesting for yourself. And I know now that if I don't want to go the studio route or go the traditional distribution route of paying a lot of money to advertise the movie, I could just kind of put it on my back and go from city to city, which was equally as gratifying.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Oh.
Cool.
I feel bad because it's such like a serious answer. I wanted to go out on and then my dick fell out, but it didn't really have that. I can't tell you, man. It thrills me knowing that, like, at this point, it's about a year and 3 months ago. So it was June, and we're July, August, September, October, November. So a year and 5 months ago, me and my friend were fucking around on a podcast, and it was like, wouldn't it be fucked up to make this movie? And the movie had its origins over in the UK, man. It thrilled me when they were like, as soon as I knew when the UK premiere was, I was like, I'm going. But unfortunately, I was previously tied to the mom visit and stuff. But I thank you all for coming out tonight and giving it a watch, man. I know there are a lot of people. The only people really interested in this movie were people that said Walrus yes in the beginning, and I can't thank you enough for doing that, man. The fact that you took the time, 5 seconds, 12 seconds, to say Walrus yes made all the difference. And fucking people will peck till the end of time, like, whoa, fucking box office. It got me back into movie making. I was done. I was out, son. And then suddenly I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say I'm not making movies anymore. I'm just going to promise that I'll only make movies that only I would bother to make. And that all came from people saying Walrus yes, even all that way away from here where you guys are right now. So thank you so much for that. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good luck with Yoga Hosers. Good luck with Clerks 3. Hopefully we may see you here in Leeds, live in the flesh for one of those. It'd be fantastic to get you over at the festival.
Down the Leeds side streets that you slip down. I'll be there one day, man. I'm a Smiths fan.
Cool. Be great to see you. Thank you again, Kevin Smith.
All right.